What's up, guys? Today we're going to be looking at Thy Art is Murder, Holy War, and most likely I am going to tear this song apart as well. So if you want to be in this for the long haul, stick around after we watch this together. Oof. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Very first line. Let's talk about it. The song's called Holy War, which came from the Catholic Saint Augustine of Hippo, who lived in northern Africa. He wrote a whole book called Holy War, and basically defines what makes a war holy, what makes a war justifiable, basically. Um, so that's where the title came from, regardless of what they think it came from. Anyway, the first line: "Die for Christ, die for Allah. die for Jerusalem, die for Torah. Okay, so right there they set the stage of what this is about. This is about the feuds that have gone on for centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries between Christians and Muslims. And everyone's been wrong. Like, the whole time, everyone has been wrong. Um, Christians, if you go back to the Bible, even Jesus criticizes Peter for cutting off someone's ear. And Jesus says, "Put away your sword." At that passage, saying it's that he was going to go die for humanity, and Peter was not to fight for that. However, in a different verse, he does say, "Keep your swords ready." And the whole point of that, from my understanding at least, is when he says to keep your swords ready and on in at your side, is saying simply that war is coming and there will be times brutal times of war in the future, so stay ready to defend your family, basically. That's my take on it. That's just me. Um, I don't think Jesus ever condoned war, because when he looked at Jerusalem, when he was going there to be killed, he did weep over Jerusalem, saying that not a single stone would remain unturned. And sure enough, in the future, Titus came and leveled Jerusalem. And Jesus grieved for the city that murdered him. So I don't believe that Jesus ever wanted Christians going to war. Um, so I would encourage you highly, do not suggest Christians go to war. Now, you can suggest the Catholic Church wanted to go to war. That's why they did the stupid ass crusades when they did, and for absolutely no reason other than for glory and to recapture the Holy Land from the Ottomans, who coincidentally were Islamic. Interesting. Okay, the Crusades were considered holy war. They were not holy wars. They were not. They were a mess. That's why there were 6 of them and they all failed. Good job, Catholic Church. Urban II, you were a shitty ass pope. Anyway, die for Allah, die for Jerusalem, die for Torah. In specifically Judeo-Christian religions, Jerusalem is considered a holy site. Thus, the Dome of the Rock is there. Um, the interesting thing is that Mecca for Islam is not in Jerusalem. That's not where Mecca was. That's not where Muhammad set up his kingdom. Mecca was elsewhere. But partly, probably to spite the Jews, that's why they chose Jerusalem as a sacred spot. Also, probably has some connection to Abraham, who fathered Muhammad, basically, and Ishmael, who became the Islamic people. They go from talking Christ, Islam to really saying ISIS in America, because America has been considered a Christian nation for a very long time. Thus, the people who are in America are all Christians, which is bullshit. That's not true at all. Many people claim to believe in God, but not a ton of people anymore believe in Christian values or any Christianity whatsoever. As far as me, I do, but that's me. Die for the Torah. If you aren't familiar with Judaism, the Torah is the Old Testament. The Septuagint is the first 5 books, and the Torah is the law of the Old Testament. So that's also the first 5 books. Um, it's fairly. It kind of frustrates me um, to be comparing the U.S. to ISIS as if there's a similar, like, as if their agendas are the same, because they're not remotely the same. And as somebody who stood in uniform, I detest being labeled as the same as ISIS. Um, ISIS terrorized people, and they didn't care what their religion was. They claimed to do it in the name of jihad or in the name of Islam, but they gave Islam a terrible name, and that's why partially the combination of ISIS, the Taliban, and Al Qaeda gave moderate Islam an absolutely horrendous name, because all they did was use that name for terror. um, ISIS killed Muslims, they killed Christians, they killed anybody that didn't fit into their agenda and their version of Sharia law or what they claimed to be jihad. Um, with Islam, from what I've heard and studied of it, you can. The definition of jihad is not even necessarily outright war, it's the struggle, which can be defined in different ways. You can take it as literal war, or you can take it as the struggle to become a better person, which is a more moderate stance, obviously. Um, it goes on to talk about how, like, basically the U.S. went to the Middle East for oil, and that was the point. Now, the interesting thing is the U.S. didn't need to go to the Middle East for oil, because we have enough oil here to sustain ourselves for quite a while. And that's why Trump pulling out of the Iran deal isn't a bad thing for the US, because the US has, now that they started offshore drilling, in using the assets that are in the country, we don't need the Middle East oil anymore. So oil is not necessarily the motivation behind every single war that the US gets into. Um, I think it's stupid when, okay, so they come, oh, let's see. So right here, they have the mouth shut, the eyes are sewn shut. And I'm sure that they mean to make the case that it's the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. But it could also be what you pretend to not see doesn't affect your conscience. Now, this scene with the American soldier electrocuting people is from Iraq. It's from a certain camp that happened that went against the Geneva Convention. The Geneva whatever Geneva. It went against the Geneva Code of War Ethics, and that camp got shut down, and they got in so the people that ran that got in so much trouble for that, because it goes against the code of military justice as well as international war laws. Um, it's never okay to torture people, and I mean, on the grand scale of things, it's never okay to go to war, but sadly, in our world where people are not perfect, you can't live in a utopia. Just like certain things would work if everyone was perfect and nobody had any greed or any other agenda, certain things would work great. But that's not how it is. People are corrupt, and that's why you need checks and balances to make sure that the corruption doesn't pollute the general population, if you will, as far as how rules are taken. The sad thing is so many of the soldiers that went to war in the Middle East didn't go with the intention or the desire to kill people. They didn't go with the desire to hurt. They went with the desire to defend their country and to protect their loved ones back home and to make it home to their loved ones. So if that meant killing somebody so they didn't die, that's what they did. And I can tell you, the people that have killed, it's not, they don't relish that. They don't relish having had taken somebody else's life. That's not like, oh yeah, I killed people and it was great. No, they don't want to talk about it. Um, there's sin everywhere, and I think it's unjustified to say that America is more sinful than the rest of the world. Um, of course, like I said before, I'm not sure why Thy Art is Murder feels so strongly that they need to put out anti-American stuff and critique American politics from Australia, which happens to be on fire, um, from, corrupt people. Anyway, fascinating. That's, like I said, that's taken from history, so that, as sad as that is, um, I think the idea with the white hands is the idea that religion is what's fueling these fights, because you see the white hand cover the kid's mouth, and then you also see when these two guys start fighting with knives, white hands on a white cloth gave them the knives to fight each other. So it's the idea that the ideologies behind these two powers, the basically the Bible and the Quran, are what's fueling wars in the world. That is religion, which is why Thy Art is Murder is so adamantly not religion. And then this part annoyed me because that's not how you hold a machine gun or assault rifle, or in this case, an M16. That's not how you would hold it if you were going to shoot it. Sorry, that was being a little over the top. Later on, there is a scene of the soldier waterboarding somebody, right? And as far as torture methods go, waterboarding is moderate and a much more humane form of torture than many things that even horror movies have come up with. Um, I get that you're not allowed to waterboard people, but also at the end of the day, why do wars happen? Because somebody does what they weren't allowed to do. So the idea, like, to a degree, it doesn't make sense to me that there's any ethics in war, because you're still killing people. Like, you capture people, there's a certain standard you're supposed to hold to how you treat captured people. But if you don't capture people, you just killed them. Like, it ethics in war is a very complicated thing that I don't want to necessarily get into. Um, I've already gotten into way too much stuff here. This video is almost 20 minutes. Jesus Christ. Please. Oh my. Okay. Anyway, I will stop going on and on about this song. I will talk to you guys in the next video. If you have comments, which I'm sure you do now that I brought up politics, feel free to share your view. Do not be toxic about it. If you're going to talk politics, be kind, be caring, share your view, and discuss, but do not start attacking each other over politics. It's not worth it, and that's not what this is about. I will see you guys in the next video, and there's a reason at the end of the video I say peace.